Hailing from Medarot Navi's Zodiac series, as imposing as the symbol of the snake that she represents and getting a massive facelift from her original introduction to Medarot S, it is OPS00 Ophiuchus, with a kit of Field Control, Thunder, Sword, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Blowbeat, which ignores a small percentage of the target's resistance stats when attacking. Now, as mentioned, Ophiuchus has actually been already introduced in Medarot as an enemy NPC in Story Mode Arc 3, which was geared mostly towards the Zodiac series and Medarot Navi as a whole. But with her official reveal and release as a pullable gacha model, she got a massive facelift that, instead of making her art more akin to her original sprite in-game, her new design actually reflects more of her original design and concept art that was originally put on paper that, of course, 2D sprites can't really reflect super well. But all the same, her kit does remain the same in her normal mode. Hit Field Control is a support-based skill that, when used, as long as herself and any ally's legs have matching compatibility on the field, will cap the heavy limit of all legs to 3. No matter where they're at, it will be pumped all the way up, making for ultimate compatibility across most terrains as long as they can match it decently well. Right Arm of Thunder is an ailment-based skill and always well loved for what it does offer, as the ability to stun enemies and hold them in place for a short amount of time. Left Arm of Sword is a conventional melee skill that generally you can never ever go wrong with for its incredible balance and versatility and overall consistently balanced damage across the board. Biped Legs do also give Ophiuchus moderately solid coverage on most terrains decently well, as one of the best well-rounded legs in terms of, say, some they have good legs, good match here, and some not so good here, aside from, of course, Float, which is A rank across all. Her leg stats are honestly really good too, and I was kind of impressed initially by how tanky they made Ophiuchus in this case. With mobility of 859, she's definitely on the much higher end of the scale, and much closer to where you want to be for a base mobility before all other factors are considered. A melee resist of 1404 is really good too, especially for female bots like her, where resistances or even high-end armor or offense skills like what she offers are not necessarily as easily made readily available. Shoot resist of 947 isn't too shabby, but definitely not enough to easily cripple her on the field either, and a heavy limit of 2 also is a nice touch. Of course, since her head and her right arm are also heavy parts. An evade of 702 isn't super great though, but also not bad either. She just won't be dodging a whole lot, and I would not expect her to initially once she does hit the field. Now, across the board though, she is, like I mentioned, moderately tanky at about 3900 HP for the head, about 3600 for that right arm, about 3250 for the left, and a little over 4100 for her legs. So she can definitely take a hit moderately well, especially if it's coming from an incoming melee-based enemy more than an incoming shooting-based one. Now, for those that have played Medarot Navi, the original, and have faced off against her originally, she is also capable of a meta change form, where she will tuck the scepter in between the legs and also convert into a more serpentine and hydra-based design. In this form, she gains a much more offensive-based kit designed solely and exclusively for zoning enemies across the field. And while in this mode, her kit changes entirely to a Drive A of Hypercrept, Drive B of Blowaway, Drive C of Suction, her leg type changes to Multi, and her leg ability changes to Abscond, which passively buffs the cool stat of all skills while in this mode. Now, as mentioned, while in this form, she is definitely much more imposing and dangerous in appearance, and her role on the field can definitely be made a very big frustration if she is an enemy on the other side of the field. Hypercrept is a much stronger and higher tier support-based skill that, once activated, will choose 2 random buffs from a pool, which include Shoot Boost, Fight Boost, Guard Boost, Mobile Boost, and so on, and apply them to everyone across the team, 2 of them chosen at random. Blowaway we have not seen super often at this point, except for a very small handful of models, but when used, it will push the enemy all the way back to the start line on their side of the field. Now, this can be very good or very bad based on how your timing is. And Suction is basically the shooting variant that instead pulls targets closer to the center line, which is also very good for stall tactics if your timing is good. The multi-legs do also give her moderately good coverage on most terrains, arguably the next best under Biped in many cases, and in this form, her leg stats and her resistances do considerably go up a lot. In this case, with a combined pool of almost 15,000 HP, not the super tankiest on the field, but definitely higher tier than most. A melee resist of 1600 and a shoot resist of 1180 is definitely much better than it is in her biped form. A mobility of 948 is very notably higher and much better while in this form compared to it was when in her biped form. An evade of 791 doesn't really change too much, so again, she may not be dodging a lot except every here and there, but when she does dodge, I would consider it a blessing. That being said, as a pure set score, I would honestly have to rate Ophiuchus a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10, given that she has pretty moderate coverage between support-based skills, melee-based skills with Thunder and Sword, and of course with a mastery in zoning between Blowaway and Suction, and of course Hypercrept for that extra bonus to support to her role as a supporter. That being said, however, she does also come with a couple of flaws, unfortunately, that will make using her somewhat tricky, depending on how you choose to use her. And most notably, it's the fact that Blowaway and Suction require CG to use, which means you can't just shift willy-nilly, unfortunately, to use one or the other, as you kind of have to build for it and use your Metaforce gauge accordingly in order to make use of it and not mistime it. And that being said, on the topic of timing, Ophiuchus, while in transformed mode, is very reliant on timing. If your timing is off by even a half second, that pushing all the way to the start line to stall the enemy and restart their heat phase could turn into an instant acceleration and finish of their cooldown, or even vice versa with Suction by completing an instant finish of the enemy's heat phase if you're off timing. As mixed parts, I do have to rate her just a hair lower at about a 7 out of 10, given that her legs are honestly very solid, Thunder you generally can't ever go wrong with, and Sword is also a very nice skill with a good solid base power, especially for female-based bots. Field Control you may not use super often, if at all, if I'm honest, but for her other three parts, even if you are kind of sacrificing Blowaway and Suction in this case, I wouldn't necessarily call it a loss in some cases that would go against her, whether you use her as a mixed set, or whether it's a pure set or as mixed parts.